Welcome to the Pastel Society of Southern California Themed Thursday. Today is September something, right? Where are we?
22nd.
September 22nd, 2022. And thank you very much for your patience and for hanging on with us while we recovered from some technical difficulties, but recover we did. And I'd like to turn this over to you, Margie, to present our wonderful featured guest for this evening.
Well, hello, everybody. I think you can hear me, right? With us tonight is one of my favorite pastel artists, Kathleen. And Kathleen is not only talented as an artist, but also a musician. And tonight she's going to show us the Nocturnal paintings she's been working on. And also, Kathleen, this might be a good time to explain what kind of surface you're working on, and does it vary?
Okay. So hello, everybody. I want to walk you through a little bit of what I do when I start a painting, and this one happens to be a nocturne. I think that that Margie was talking about. A lot of my paintings, I use a prepared surface where I take print making paper and put paint on a ground on top of it, the golden ground for pastels, that gives it a real heavy texture and brush marks and everything. I am not using that tonight. I'm sorry. I took a hiatus from doing that. I bought a whole bunch of some UART paper and some of the what is the other one called? The Lux archival paper. And so I've been doing more paintings on those. And the reason that I changed was I got a request for some paintings of clouds, and I found that the heavily textured paper wasn't giving me the right effect that I wanted for clouds, that I wanted something smoother for clouds. And so I got used to using the smoother paper for a while, and I have a whole bunch in stock. So I'm using it up before I go back to the textured paper. So I'm sorry, I'm not demonstrating that today. But I thought, when I was thinking about the task of doing a nocturnal, I thought, what is it about, doing the paintings from photos that you take at night or at dusk, and that I'm doing it from photos. I'm not going out at dusk and doing these things. And I think that the biggest thing that I like about that is that the photos that you take at night or at dusk don't give you very much information. They do a lot of the simplification for you. That's one thing that you can think about if you're doing things from photos, even if it's during the daytime. You can take it into Photoshop or whatever photo program you use on your phone, and turn the exposure way down, and it'll blend a lot of things together, and you can just get shapes from that. You can start out with just basic shapes and low and the contrast, things that are really bright will be bright, and things that are dark will be dark, and we'll just eliminate a lot of the detail and maybe help you. But I wanted to show you the photo that I started with, and I'm going to try this. I practiced with it before and it worked, so let me try this again. Where is it? Okay. so this is the photo that I started with. And I wasn't driving, I was a passenger. So don't worry that there was an accident happening here. But, you know, it starts out, you know, with not a whole lot of information. But it does start out a little bit too busy over on the left-hand side. All those bright lights might be a little bit difficult. And so I took it into Photoshop, and I pared it down to be this. So what I did in Photoshop is I cropped it, and then, you know, if you remember, there was a large car in the foreground on the left-hand side, and I got rid of that by painting over it with Photoshop. And then also the cars on the left-hand side, that all of the oncoming traffic, that their bright lights were coming at us, I got rid of those too, so that I could simplify it and not have so much to deal with. So this is the photo that I'm working from. And I'll go back to my screen again. And so I block in, you know, the big shapes with, you know, and I sketch in the proportions of what I want. And then I wash it out, you know, wash it down with some different values. Now, because it's a nocturne, the values are all very close. Just the very bright things are left light, and probably in my painting, you know, in my start here, the lights are too light, but I wanted to remember where they were. But everything else is almost the same color, you know, almost the same value, just slightly different. And I'm hoping that you can see this as I go. And I apologize because my studio is not set up for doing things at night. I have windows all along the side of my the area that I use as my studio, and I paint during the daytime, and I have wonderful light during the daytime. But at night, when it gets dark, all I have are my overhead. All I have are my overhead lights, and they're not very good. And I usually don't paint at night, so I apologize for that. Anyway, so what I've got now that I'm starting with is my basic, you know, values and colors, and a layout of where I want things. And so I'm going to start, you know, with that. There isn't a whole lot to do because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, nocturnes, like I said, eliminate a lot of detail to begin with. And then my style, I don't like to do a lot of detail. So the shapes in the background and the foreground are going to stay pretty much what they are. What I need to work on are those vehicles, and to make them look like they're vehicles. That's going to be the tricky part. And so we'll see how it goes. And you can talk amongst yourselves or have a drink of your beverage of choice. And you can ask me questions and I'll try to respond. I don't know if you'll have any questions or not. You can say, get out of the way if I'm standing in your way and you want to see something. So let me see. I have a feeling that you can see it on your screen better than I can see it in person. It's pretty dark here.
It looks pretty cool.
So we'll see how it goes. I think that the first thing that I'm going to do is see if I can get this to be more like I want it to be. I think it's a little bit bright. And what I'm using now are some Holbein pastels. And I'm doing it very lightly. I find that they work very good with a very light touch to kind of blend things together.
Kathleen, when you do your initial sketch, what do you usually sketch with? A pencil or a pastel pencil, or?
I usually sketch with one of these Holbein pastels.
Okay, thank you.
Sometimes I'll use a juried pastel to sketch with. And this is a really interesting way to work on something, because like I said, it's actually, there's more light on the screen that you're seeing than what I'm seeing in person. And so I can hardly tell what color I'm using. And so all of those teachers that tell you color doesn't matter, it's all value. This would be a good exercise to do, paint in the dark. And you don't know what color you're using, but you can tell the different values. So. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with nocturnes, but another thing that I have done in the past, I haven't done recently, but this is, I used to do more paintings of cars on the road. And so I was painting cars a lot. And I discovered that in order to get the idea of a car, you don't have to paint every little detail. If you get kind of the basic size and just a couple of lines of, to hint at, this is the roof of the car, this is the rear bumper of the car. You don't have to draw in the whole thing and it'll still look like a car. Sorry, my dog is barking and I can mute her, but I mute myself if I do that.
I don't think it's a problem. I get worried when my dog is too quiet.
The other thing that happened today is my printer won't print. Or at least my color printer won't print. And so usually I work using my iPad as my screen, you know, for my reference photo. And but I can't do that tonight because it's functioning as my webcam. And I couldn't print out a color photo either. So I'm really working in the dark.
Did you put in a dark green there, or is that a more of a black tone?
Where initially
Right
when I
above the-
went,
Right above the trucks.
that was a dark green. for me.
Okay, I thought.
So, so
dark.
I used a almost black for the road, and then I used a very dark green because these are trees along here,
Yeah, that looks great.
and then a dark yellow, you know,
Mhm.
yellowish green for this near hill, and then a purplish for the mountains. And I'm going to go over that a little bit.
Kathleen, when you're painting at home, do you like to have a complete silence, or because I paint better when I have music playing?
Um,
Or does it just depend on your mood?
it depends on my mood, and generally I don't have music playing.
Okay.
You know, there's usually, sometimes I'll have the baseball game on.
Ah, okay.
But when I'm, when I'm painting it, at home, usually I paint for short spurts. I'll work on something for a little bit, and then I'll stop and I'll wash my hands and I'll get a cup of coffee and I'll maybe do some dishes and and look at it while I'm doing that. My studio is in the corner of my living room. And so I can walk all around my house and do things in my house and still look at my painting from different viewpoints. And then I'll say, okay, now I know what I want to do, and I'll go back and do it for a little bit more. But I generally don't work on anything for more than 15, 20 minutes at a time.
Sounds like a good plan, actually.
I think that you get to a certain point and you're just fussing with things.
Mhm.
And you kind of lose track of what you're doing. I'm going to.
So Kathleen, this is Kath. That's very refreshing to hear. It gives me hope.
Yeah, I don't think that, I think that sometimes people feel guilty because they aren't painting enough. And, when really all you have to do is, if you only have 15 minutes, do 15 minutes and then do something else. That might actually be better than trying to work on something for hours at a time. I'm using one of these, Dawn Emerson introduced me to these smushers, is what she calls them. And there's some kind of dense foam that's used for construction, like for insulation and underneath floors and stuff like that. And it's like styrofoam, but very, very dense. And they just are wonderful for blending and smushing. Much better than the sponges that you buy at the store, at the art store. Those seem to be too mushy. And these kind of replicate what you would do with your finger. But but you aren't using your finger, so you aren't getting your finger all dirty. And because they're so dense, they wash off, so after it gets all messy like this, I can take it and wash it off with water and dish soap, and it'll be all clean and white again, and nothing soaks in. It'll dry really quickly because it's so dense that liquids don't soak in. And so I've started using it for all sorts of things. It's really great.
Where do you find them?
Now that is a good question, because I got them from her. And I took a couple. You have to take a class with Dawn Emerson, because she gave them out in class. And then during the pandemic, I took a Zoom class with her, and she said that they had recently done a lot of construction on her studio and she had all this extra. So I wrote to her and asked her, and she sent me like 5 or 6 of them. So I'm sad, but I don't know how you get them other than.
I would imagine you could get them at Home Depot.
Yeah,
Department.
You'd have to, you might have to buy. It might come in like gigantic sheets.
Excuse me, I missed what it was called.
I don't know what it's called. It's a foam insulation, and you
I
can put it
have,
under
I have one
floors.
piece, yeah.
You know, it would, you can write to Dawn Emerson and ask her what it's called.
Yeah, I have one piece from a class and I hoard it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also really good. At IAPS one time, I took a class with, what's his name? Stan Spurlack. And his class, he did underpaint, you know, rubbed in underpainting. So not using a liquid, you would, you know, he put in a layer of pastel and he rubbed it out with his hand as a dry underpainting. And these work really good for doing that too. So if you don't want to put water on your, or if you have a surface that won't take liquid, but you want to do, you know, you want to lay in some colors underneath that don't get picked up by your top layers, you can do that. You can lay down a layer and rub it out with this, and it's almost as good as painting it out with alcohol or something like that. Doesn't get quite as dark. So if you wanted a dark color underneath that you didn't want to mix in with your other layers, that won't work. But other than that, it works pretty good for blending in, I think. I might do that. Some more, put a couple of different colors of blue in the sky. And then I'm gonna take one of these. This one looks dirty, but it's clean. And I'm going to just rub those different colors of blue together in the sky.
Sorry.
Okay. What do I want to do? Here's another thing that I found very helpful. I got a bunch of these shop towels, and I get one and I get it wet and wring it out. So it's just damp. And then I can use it to wipe off my fingers instead of using a whole bunch of baby wipes that just get thrown out. So that's another thing that I found really helpful.
Kathleen, would you remind me where you said this photo was taken at?
I didn't say where it was taken at.
Oh.
It was on the way home from Palm Springs.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
So, yeah, somewhere along that road. Keep bumping into that. Now, on one of the things that I liked about this picture, and I like about paintings of roads at night is the you have these large areas that are like almost black, but there's like some light coming from, you know, it's like reflected off. There's like a car over here and you're getting a little bit of bleed from the headlights, and up here the headlights of those cars are kind of falling on the ground. And I'm going to try and see what I can do to give that and that's actually what's defining those trucks is some light that's coming from the headlights of those cars. So it's not very bright, but it is brighter than whatever else is around it. And you see whatever's coming from the headlights of that truck are spilling out too. So down here, it's probably too much, but that's where I'll take one of these smushers and smush it. And in this particular image, I think that one of the things that really makes it work are the lines in the road. And if I can get those in correctly, then it will really help pull the whole thing together. Now, of course, I can't draw a straight line. But you know, it's almost
Yeah.
what, you know, but you know, it's like getting that curve correct. And this line correct, and the way that it's brighter here and kind of gets darker. And I think that these lights have to be brighter. And now I think I really need to step way away from it and see what it looks like from a distance. These taillights, I think, could be redder. Okay, so one of the things that's bothering me about this when I'm looking at it is this white tape on the side. And I'm seeing these things, I'm thinking, what is that? So I'm gonna take some black tape and cover that up and see if that helps me get rid of all that messiness and see where the edge of my paper is. I think that the mountaintop needs to be a little lighter. Well, now another thing I do when I get to about this point where I think, oh, what am I going to do next? I really don't know. What does it look like? I will take a picture of it with my phone. All of these tools that we have at our disposal these days, phones and Photoshop and stuff, it's like, I started out thinking, oh, it's cheating to do these things. But then I thought, well, you use what you have. And if we have it, why not use it? And looking at images on your phone, it can help you kind of separate your painting from everything else that's going on around it. Phone, the photographs are not absolutely accurate in color, and they will do things like make the contrast, make it more contrasty than it actually is. But all of those things can help you identify problem areas, where something isn't quite working the way that you thought it would, or a shape is like the wrong shape. Like right now, I'm looking at it on my phone, and this here is really kind of uninteresting. And what do I need to do to remedy that? I can, get rid of this harsh line here. I can blend it away, make it darker, we aren't seeing what exactly is back there. Who cares what it is? We can kind of get rid of it, and that might be more interesting than just having that line coming down. I can look at my original picture, which unfortunately I can't show you so much, and see what's happening in my original picture. And in the original picture, I don't know if you can see that. Doesn't really show.
We can see it, Kathleen. I can see it okay. Yes.
In the original picture, it kind of disappears. That line disappears there, and so I can do something more similar to that. Darker color.
Kathleen, do you play music when you draw and paint?
I don't usually. I do, certain things. I think of strokes and stuff that I'm doing as musical, and that there would be like a rhythm to them. So if I get into a place where I'm doing, something where I'm a good example of that would be when I did this painting, and it has all of these strokes in it that are going up and down. I would get into a rhythm, and in my head, I would be singing a rhythm to that, not any particular song, but just that there's a musical rhythm to certain lines, and I feel that's what makes a successful painting, is something where you can feel the rhythm to it, like, this goes this way, this goes this way, this goes this way, this goes this way. And it's like, it's all dancing to a rhythm, but it's not any particular song. So I don't know how to explain that, but.
What instruments do you play? This is Christine Obers.
Well, I play the violin.
Oh, wow.
However, I haven't really played the violin in a long time. And I think that what Margie was thinking of is my husband is a much better musician than I am. He plays the guitar and the piano, and he teaches music, and he has a music store. And we do have concerts on the weekends. and so I'm around music a lot because we have the music store and the
That's
concert.
wonderful.
And so I
What is the name of the store?
Boulevard Music in Culver
There you
City. And yeah, you should, if you're in the Southern California area, South Bay, West LA, Santa Monica, even the Valley, it's not that far. We just started up with concerts. We were kind of dark during the pandemic because large groups of people, but just a couple of weeks ago, we started up with the concerts again. So if you look on our website, boulevardmusic.com, you can see the whole list of concerts that's coming up. And we specialize in acoustic music, a lot of guitar music. We have some really fine guitar players coming up. Christy Lene does fingerstyle guitar, kind of jazzy. Carl Verheyen is going to play an acoustic set, and he's a fairly well-known studio musician. His main claim to fame was he was the lead guitarist in the group Supertramp, but he does much more. He does much more than that. And when he's playing acoustic, it's a lot of blues and fingerstyle. We have some bluegrass coming up. So a lot of different things. We just had a great Celtic guitar player come and play.
Wow, Kathleen, that's really great news to hear. So I'll be up there to enjoy some of those concerts and get up there. But I really loved what you said about having a rhythm, that your strokes were rhythm. And that makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
Yeah, which is maybe why I don't play music when I'm painting, because if you're, whatever music you're playing you'd have to be very careful about what you choose, because the rhythm would have to match what you're painting, so. And you might not know what that is, because like right now, I wouldn't know what song to play.
Keep on trucking.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe the Allman Brothers, or something like that. Would be a good one for this one, but. It will be really interesting to see this in the daylight and see what colors I have chosen to put in here, because I can't tell in the lighting in my studio what colors I've actually put on here.
Did they kill Putin yet?
No, I slept as soon as I came
I
in.
know you did.
I don't know why.
So
Speaking of colors, what is the white? Is that really a white, or is that a light something else?
it's a light blue, and what it is, it's not even that light of a blue. It's just lighter than everything else. And what it is, it's the snow on top of the mountains, and it's catching the last of the sunlight. Obviously, that's not coming across. What you're seeing on the screen is not a really very accurate view of what's happening here, but I don't know what else, what one can do about that.
Well, perhaps when you're finished and happy with the painting, we can add it to our YouTube channel.
Right, I will, when I finish in the daylight, I will send you a photo of it, how it really looks.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah. So I think I've gone about as far as I can in the dark here.
Okay.
And what I'll do also is take some pictures of it as, photographs of it as it is now before I work on it some more, so that you can actually see more of what it actually looks like as I was working on it. Because, you know, that's the whole thing about photographs. This area up here in real life is not as light as it appears on the screen.
Okay.
It seems really a much higher value than it actually is. And these shapes are actually more well defined than they appear on the screen, because it's kind of at an angle. So.
Well, I love the use of the curves and that straight line, because it draws you right into the main focal point.
Yeah, I think that there's potential there.
Okay.
You know, you never know. You never know what you're going to get when you start.
Right.
And I took one class in college that it wasn't a painting class. It was a crafts class. It was building things with fiber. And but the teacher had a very interesting thing to say about projects, is that you know, if you think about it, everybody has to be 13 sometime. And you know, if you think about yourself when you were 13 and you weren't, you know, you were kind of awkward, you know, you start out cute, and then you become 13 and you're just awkward and stupid and you don't know what's going on, and, you know, nothing fits, and your body is not what it should be. And you have to like work through it. And, you know, and then you become an adult and you can forget what you were at 13, because, you know, you worked through it and you became something better. And so if you think of your projects like that they start out, you know, like, oh, this is going to be wonderful. And then you hit this big lump in the middle and you're thinking, this will never become anything. It's horrible. And you can't just toss it away. You have to work through that and see, you know, because it will come out to be something better at the end if you work through it. So my words of wisdom.
I call that the ugly phase, which
Yes.
happens to me about when I'm 30% in, and then it leaves after I've worked on it for a while.
Yeah. So I will work on this tomorrow and see what I can salvage. And
I think it's looking really good.
It really is, Kathy. And so are you thinking that you might finish it tomorrow? Is that something, or do you need more?
Probably, yeah. You know, I probably will finish it, or pretty much. Often what I will do is I will work on, and this routine sort of happened when I was working, and I was only, you know, I would work during the week and I would have the weekends to paint. And so I would start something on Saturday and get about as far as I am here. And then I would put it away and work at it again on Sunday and be pretty much finished, but it would be up in my studio in my house for the following week. And I would look at it and I would say, oh, maybe I'll put a little dot here, or maybe I'll get rid of that line there. So for the next week, I might do little tweaks before I absolutely call it finished. But I don't like to spend too much time on things. I get bored with things. I guess, I find it hard to spend a whole lot of time. I'd rather start something new and then maybe with what I've learned from something, I'll start a new one rather than keep messing around with an old one. It was interesting. I started taking a figure drawing workshop last week, and they started out with 1-minute poses, and then they did 15 or 10-minute poses, and then they did 20-minute poses, and then they did an hour pose. And 20-minute poses was about as long as, like I would be finished. It's like, what else am I going to do? I would, so I just started and I did the same thing again, rather than mess around with that one that I was working on. And, that's just me. I can't, it's like I get to a certain point and I can't go any further. If I do, it's just fiddling with it. So
Kathleen, I think this is Lynn. I think that's why your work looks so fresh. It always looks fresh because you're going in there and you're doing it and you're getting out without overworking it or overthinking it. I love that about what you're doing. I love seeing every day what you produce in the time that you have.
Yeah. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't worry about when it doesn't work. It's like, okay, I'll paint over that one. I'll throw that one out. I'll just do another one. But I really admire people who can spend hours and get really detailed, realistic looking things. I just can't do that. But I really admire people who do that. I wish I could, but in another lifetime, maybe. So.
Does anybody have any other questions? I mean, I know we started a little bit late, and so if it's okay with you, Kathleen, if there are more questions that we can stay a little bit longer or a few minutes longer, then
if people have questions, I'm here. I don't know what kind of questions they would have, but
Well, I wanted to know when you decided to go into, sorry. Hi. Anyhow, I wanted to ask you when you decided to make art a major part of your journey. Was it in college? Was it earlier when you were in elementary school? Does that make sense?
Yeah. When I was growing up, my older sister was the artist, so okay. she did the art, and I was the good student, so okay. I got A's and she did art, and and then in college, well, like right after college, I thought, well, I could do this, why not? And so I took a couple of classes. After I graduated from college, I took a couple of a handful of painting classes, life drawing classes, whatever. But then I started working, and I got, I had a family that all got in the way, and it was like there was no time for doing any kind of artwork. So once my son grew up and went to college and went away, I thought, gee, I'm going to do this. Why not? I have all this extra time now. I've always wanted to do it. I'm just going to do it. And I started out with mosaics because I really like mosaics.
I love mosaics too.
But, once again, mosaics and I don't really get along very well because you have to spend a lot of time with them.
Yes.
It's like they're very labor intensive, and you have this idea in the beginning, and it might take months before you get the finished product, and you don't know if it works until you get the finished product. And then a friend of mine asked me to go with her to a convention that, that they were having in Pasadena where they had a bunch of different classes that you could take. And I took a class, I thought, okay, well, this is fun. What will I take? And there was a pastel class and I took that one and I just fell in love with pastels. I thought this is something, that I can do quickly. I can get something done and I can finish it. And they're easy to clean up. They don't require, all you need is a piece of paper.
Right.
And it just suited my style. So, and that was about 10 years ago. And so I was still working. And so, but it was something, I could finish a painting in a weekend. And, that's sort of, what I set myself a goal that I would finish things. I didn't want any more unfinished projects, and that if I could finish it in a weekend, and I would do a painting a week. So I set myself that goal that I would do a painting a week, and I did. And now I'm retired, so I have more time to do it. I can do more than one painting in a week, but I still, I don't always do more than one painting a week, but I still want to do at least a painting a week. So.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions?
There's some stuff in the chat, but yeah. Thank you, Kathleen, for
Yeah,
sharing
thank
your
you very much.
process. You're an inspiration.
I hope you got something from it. I'm not a very good teacher. That's the way it is.
Oh.
Thank you so
Actually,
much.
Kathleen, a critique of you is that this was very inspirational. You imparted a lot of knowledge, and I don't know that you know how many people you've actually touched with sharing your time with us tonight. And I'm very grateful that you did, because I got a lot out of being able to sit here and observe and have you talk through your process. It was absolutely wonderful. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kathleen. It was
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you.
Really
Yes.
great.
Thank you, Kathleen. I really
Yes.
enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Kathleen.
very
Great.
much.
Wonderful to hear your journey and see the fresh work that you do, and you keep winning awards, and just, you don't make things precious, you just move on. And I love that about your work. So thank you for inspiring us.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Can I just give a quick plug to Boulevard Music? Kathleen
Sure.
was a little bit humble on that maybe, but boy, they have had just top flight musicians. You may not have heard of them, but you probably heard of some of the groups. And a guy named Lawrence Juber comes in. He played lead guitar for Paul McCartney and Wings, who you might have heard of. And boy, he is just exceptional on solo acoustic guitar. They've also had, excuse me, Pat Donahue, Pat Kirtley. Pat Kirtley plays Celtic guitar and many different kinds. Pat Donahue was the band leader, Prairie Home Companion, and you've seen Del Rey, who plays blues with a resonator guitar. All world-class musicians. Muriel Anderson, many of these players won the Winfield fingerstyle contest, with just features the absolute best. But anyway, it's a great place to go. It's a small venue and it's very homey, and they make wonderful cookies, by the way.
Well,
But
we haven't, since the pandemic, I haven't been putting out the cookies. Maybe I should start that up since we're working our way out of the pandemic. Maybe we can have food that you can grab and share with, your germs with other people. Speaking of,
anyway, I wanted just to thank you too for doing such a great job tonight, and kind of rescuing the whole program there when things were a little wonky with the computers at first, but it came out wonderfully.
oh, well, thank you. You mentioned Lawrence Juber, and he
Yes.
is coming up. He's going to be there sometime in October. I can't remember the date. So
He'll
So
amaze you.
Lawrence Stuber is, yeah, he's a fantastic guitar player. Bob, were you able to come and see Tony McManus?
No, I didn't. We had something lined up that night,
Oh.
unfortunately. But I've seen him at your place before and he is exceptional. Did
Yeah.
you happen to see him during the day, by the way?
I did, yes. Yeah, that was very nice to have him. My son got married on Saturday, and Tony McManus played the guitar, while people were being seated at the wedding.
Congratulations. So exciting.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Congrats.
Thanks.
So nice. Do you, let's see, do we want to talk about the next Themed Thursday really quickly? Margie,
Yeah,
do you?
Margie, what do we have?
We have Mary Aslan.
Yay.
To do
Wow.
the picture in the landscape.
Okay, so that's the second Thursday in October, correct?
Right. And
There's
then
one
you
second and
lined
fourth. Okay.
somebody up for me for Halloween. Do you remember, Lynn?
I've got my list. Hold on, you sent me a list, so let me check that out really quickly.
So that will be October 13th will be our next Themed Thursday with Mary Aslan. So that day,
Yeah.
you know,
And then we'll announce the 27th after that. Yeah,
Very good.
good. And then we'll see you guys all at the meeting on Saturday.
we have a terrific
Very
meeting.
fun.
Kathleen, if you feel or care to share your painting on Saturday, that would be absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
It would just give inspiration to people about how nice it is to be able to see something in process, and then you may or may not be done with it, or if you care to do it at this next meeting, but
Well,
we'd love to be able to see it.
that'll give me a goal to finish it, right?
That gives you tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Right, you got
because the meeting's
tomorrow.
Saturday. All right. Well, we'll see you all on Saturday. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for your help.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Guys, let's go ahead